What's going on, folks? It's Kiss Shorty Human Nation, and as the title says, uh, three Ps of manhood. Black men should be valued for his ability to procreate and not shamed. Um, what prompted me to come up with this title, right, is hold on, let me edit the title a little bit here. What made me come up with this title is that oftentimes with black men now, right, now that he is free to age in certain elements of masculinity, like the three P's of manhood, and one of them is the ability to procreate. Now that he's able to engage into it now freely, um, without the extreme threat of racism that took place during Jim Crow, during slavery, during sharecropping, not everybody wants to kind of shame him into not doing it, doing the procreation part, right? And how they do it now, right? And I have this saying that in my mind, right? That you can have the same topic, same premise, but different intentions. Now, the argument for black men is that, or one of the arguments or topics to black men is that black men should not be valued for how many women he sleeps with, or how many women he has sex with, or for the value of how many women he is dealing with, right? Now, the premise of the argument could be similar to Michael Jai White's argument, where he's saying that a man um, value is not to how many women he's dealing with, because according to Michael Jai White, the best thing for him was to find out one woman that he could stay in a long term or monogamous situation with, right? Um, and the other premise, the other part of Michael Jai White's argument or premise is that this value for black man's ability to sleep with multiple women came from slavery, which is true. Um, Black men were used as breeding tools to breed black women to create more slaves in America and in other parts of the world, like in the Caribbean, places like Brazil, Jamaica, and Trinidad, to for economic reasons, to provide more slave labor, build the country, especially during the South and the United States of America. And then Michael Jai White also talked about the pimp player Mac culture during the black exploitation era. Um, so from that premise and that argument, because it's used as a negative of against black men, you could say that from that premise, a black man should not be valued for his ability to procreate or sleep with many women. And that's actually a good premise. Because now if this thing onto black men is a negative that came from slavery, and our former slave masters was using this as a way to create more slaves, to create more slave labor or black labor to help build this country and to help them, build their stuff, help them create this country, then I would agree with that premise that Michael Jai White is saying, right? There's another brother, I forgot his name. I think his name is Cave of Albalon. I might play one of his clip. He says his premise on why black man's value should not be placed on his penis or how many women he's sleeping with is because of the benefits towards that man himself and the benefits to how it's affecting that man himself, right? How does that affect his spiritual, his mental, his psychology? How that affects his self worth and his self value, which I also agree with too. because black men, we base who we are and our identity and how many women that we're getting, and not base our identity on who we are and how we define ourselves. And when you base your identity about based upon how many women you can get or how many women you can sleep with, um, without any proper context or proper reason behind it or purpose behind it, you know, it could be disastrous for that black man himself. Because now a woman can come and go. You know, women could not like you, women could reject you, women could destroy you, women could cause a lot of damage and harm to you, right? And ultimately, women can come and go. So for black men to base his masculinity solely based upon how many women he sleep with, or base his identity on how many women he can sleep with or be with, now that could be disastrous for that black man himself, right? You know, because now he's sleeping with multiple women. He's getting them pregnant. They're all putting him on child support. You know, some of the women he's sleeping with could be bad for him. And managing multiple women, it's very taxing upon a man. Dealing with too many, managing a lot of women with so many emotions and stuff like that, right? Sharing your masculinity with a bunch of women can be draining on your masculinity, right? Um, you know, you could, yeah. So and then you have things like what they call soul ties, where you as a man, you're tying yourself to so many different women with so many different energies, thoughts, and opinions. That can very much affect your masculinity, spiritually and psychologically, right? So I could agree with that premise that a man should not value himself based upon how many women he can sleep with. You know what I'm saying? Because of how it affects him negatively. And I can agree to that, especially in this day and time, because a black man's, whether he has game or not, and as I explained, game is having the knowledge, experience, and wisdom, and how you take what you've learned and apply it to yourself and apply it to the game, or how you apply it to yourself and help yourself with that knowledge and wisdom you learn to help you play this big game called life out here, or help you to navigate this game we call life out here, right? But a black man's game is solely based upon how many women he can sleep with. Now, that woman he can sleep with, that is game in itself, because you need knowledge, wisdom, experience on how to navigate yourself through the dating game when it comes to women, how to have sex with women, how to speak to women, how to manage women in a relationship, how to find the right woman to get married. So all of that in itself is game. But black men's game is only solely attached to that. When a black man game should be first attached to himself first, and what he wants to do and how he's going to go about doing that, right? But what I've noticed is that outside of black men in other cultures, that value is also attached to other men of other cultures. But the value of procreation or the ability to sleep with women for other men is not seen as a negative. It's actually seen as a positive. It's actually seen as a way to grow that society, grow that nation, grow that community. And we're going to go into that. We're going to go into what that is today. Something called the three Ps of manhood, right? And we have to ask our question is, why is procreation so bad for black men, but it's so great for other men? And why is it being used as a negative for black men, but it's still a positive for other men, and it's a way for men to grow their nation and their society? Now, like I said earlier, you can have a topic, you can have a premise, but you can have one topic, two premises, one premise is coming from one perspective and the other premise coming from another. So you can have one topic, premise A and premise B. Both premise A and B have the same premises, but you could have premise A with a different intention behind the premise, as opposed to premise B, who also who has the same premise but has his own intention or own intentions or agenda behind that same premise, right? So you could say that uh, one topic: black men need to monogamy, need to practice monogamy. The premise of both A and B could be, well, the reason why monogamy is good for the black man is because A, when he finds him a wife that is submissive to his household and follow his direction, and he could have four more children with that one woman, it'd be a lot easier for him to manage. And he could create a nuclear family in the community rather than to be polygamy, where now he has to manage four more women. That could be too much for him to handle and too much responsibilities for him, right? Which in these times that will be absolutely true. So one could say that a monogamy, because it's been successful for Western culture, it could be successful for the black man. That could be the premise. But premise A now, their intention of why they want to push monogamy on black men is as a way to tame and control black men. And it's to say that, well, the reason why we want black men to be in a monogamous situation is so that he's not around screwing our women. And monogamy in a monogamous situation is a thing where you're tied to one person for the rest of your life. So your sexual desires is concentrated to one person. So uh A intentions behind the same premise of monogamy could be, I want black men to be tamed and controlled. I don't want him going around sleeping with my women or anybody else's women, or black women, or even black women. I want him to stick still with just one woman. And it could be a way of population control. So his population doesn't grow. Uh B now, upon the same premise of monogamy, could say, well, could have an actual honest intention. Well, the reason why we want black men to stick to more monogamy because it's the best way to go. The reason why it's the best way to go is because black men get to find one good woman that he could be in charge of, and she can follow his direction and create a happy family. And it's a more balanced, structured society. He's not having four more women where, he has to have five kids, but four women that he can't handle or be responsible for. As opposed when he just has one woman, you know, um, he can have four children with that one woman and he can manage those children more effectively. And it's more of a balanced, structured community, right? Where each man has one woman to deal with, instead of each man having four more women that they can't handle. It's more structured. So that's a more balanced, better premise with person B. But persons A, off the same monogamous premise, his intention could be, yeah, I don't want black men to screw a bunch of women. I want monogamy to tame black men and keep black men controlled. Right? And that's the way I look at when people say black men are not valued, shouldn't be valued based upon how many women he's sleeping with, right? I could look at it from Michael Jai White's point of view and another brother's point of view, saying that, you know, Michael Jai White's point of view is that it's best for a black man to have one woman, to find out one woman that loves and cherishes him and whatsoever. And the other brother, I think his name is Cave of Abalon. I might play his clip. His version of it, his premise could be that it's a negative effect on black men because it affects his health, it affects his psychology, and it puts too much pressure on him. Which I agree. But another person's premise could be, well, we want to control black men. And my whole argument about it is that procreation is a standard of masculinity and manhood that other cultures of men have practiced outside of black men, and it wasn't seen as a negative. And we're going to go through that right now. This is called the 3 Ps of manhood. All right, 3 Ps of manhood. One is to provide. All right, manhood is a call to action, and it can interpreted as a kind of moral injunction to provision, kit and kin. This is a quote. If the imperative to protect is the most enduring resonant with modern men, appealing to one hero spirit and the imperative to procreate is the most challenged and controversial. I personally feel that the charge to provide remains the most appealing to contemplate. There are a few reasons for that. First, it is imperative that the great number of men participate in any one in on any given day. For most modern men, the duty to protect is only called upon in rare crisis situations. And I want y'all to remember something. Manhood is a call to action. Right? So right there, with that vibration of this sentence, it's a duty, it's a responsibility, it's a call to action. It's not a negative, it's a positive. So stick this in your brain, stick a pin in this in your brain right here. Stick this in your brain as I'm reading. And the imperative to procreate is the most challenged, and controversial. So remember this call to action. Remember the imperative to procreate. So far, it's not a negative, it's a positive. Up here, you see two European white men. So keep this in mind. First, it's the imperative that the greatest number of men participate in on any given day. For most modern men, the duty to protect is only called upon in rare crisis situations. And most of us are not courting or impregnating women on a daily basis, except for you, Genghis Khan. So I guess they taking shots at Genghis Khan. But just about every man has at least at one time had earned a living, even if only to support himself. It's something that part of our intrinsic day-to-day reality. Food on the table, a roof over our head, and clothes on our back. And those things don't come easily. Second, it's the imperative with the most flexible inclusivity and creativity. It is quite literally the charge to create the essence of to create. My bad. Let me slow down in my reading. Second, it's the imperative with the most flexibility, inclusivity, and creativity. It is quite literally the charge to create. The essence of provision is the ability to tame nature, to turn chaos into order, to take the raw materials of life and transform them into something of value. It involves, as author and anthropology Professor David D. Gilmour puts it, and quote, purposive construction, unquote. And then quote again, commanding an assertive action that adds something to society's story, quote, unquote. As man creations can take an almost infinitive variety of forms. Remember, I think Angry Man says that uh, men control the environment and men mold and control and manipulate the environment. I think that this falls into what Angry Man's line is saying, right? As man's creation can take an almost infinite variety of forms, the charge to provide is open to all. Someone like Stephen Hawkins cannot be a physical protector, but he can use his intellect to add to the world's treasury of knowledge. See, a man's intellect, that's another way a man can pass on himself. His intelligence. I think Tupac said that I will be reborn. I will spark the brain that causes change. Or he, I think Tupac's quote go, I will spark the brain that will affect change. That's patriarchy. That's the essence of patriarchy, or how man passes himself on, right? Father to his flock, providing them with spiritual sustenance. Factory workers and philosophers, scientists and artists, ditch diggers and teachers, they're all added to society's store. Whether intangible goods, knowledge, or beauty. Yo, this article is definitely to describe what patriarchy and the essence of manhood is right here. Related as it is to the ability to make something of nothing, many cultures, resourcefulness is connected to a role. As hold on, see something. Uh, Oh, I think I'm reading the wrong thing, but we're gonna keep reading this one though. Um, I think I'm reading the wrong thing. Where my fault. We're gonna reading through this, right? The quality of heroic resourcefulness. Oh, no, where was I at? Oh, Gilmore points out that the theme of solving collective problems figures in most mythologies of the world as the basis of myth of the culture hero. Think of the way Odysseus must use not only his strength, but his cleverness and wiles to get home to Ithaca. I don't know how to say that word. Or how we laugh about a character like MacGyver, but still kinda okay really want to be him. Think too of the nerd who smarts get his posse out of a pinch. Oh, see, I think that's giving credit to the nerds because nerds are really smart. So nerd can really, as it says, get you out of a bind with their intelligence, right? So it's saying that masculinity comes in different forms and it can provide different ways, right? So that's good. Um, this quality of heroic resourcefulness and truth pricks my heart in the same way the protector role does, showing there's a room for gallantry in the imperative too. In fact, provision and protection are interrelated, at least when the latter is viewed in a wider sense. The smarts, toughness, and the ability to maneuver needed to be a good provider protect family, if not from armed enemies, but from debt collectors, hunger, and the specter of poverty knocking at one's door. See, often in these spaces, when it comes to black men, like to play with the fucking provider role and the protector role. And because we allow women to define that shit with their subjective bullshit, black men will never find value in their ability to protect and provide and procreate. And I wish that this kind of material, this book right here needs to be read by every black man in the community from their fucking boy. Anyway, Gilmore offers a statement that I think nicely summarizes all of this. Quote, I think we can characterize manhood then as a mythic then as a mythic confibulation that sanctifies male constructivity. Unquote. Sanctify is truly the right word here, for it is the act of creating that become most like gods. Mm. Which at least brings me to the following reason. I feel the provision is the most appealing imperative to contemplate. Man as worker, man as builder, man as creator. Those roles offer the deep satisfaction that comes with being able to say, I did this with my own hands. Woo! Woo! I think that's a beautiful statement right there, in my opinion. Because black men fit this shit every fucking day. But because we allow our women to define what masculinity is and what these roles are, we don't fucking value that shit. Right? This is why I say the matriarchy has fucked up the black man's perception of himself. Even as I write this, my heart swells. The telltale effect of contemplating truth. It tastes good to me. But let us now step down from the lofty heights to trod the earth below. While in the ideal world a man can fulfill the charge to provide by engaging in endeavor, that exactly aligns with his individual talents and proclivities. For much of the modern history, being a provider was more about duty than self actualization. Damn, it's hard for me to say that word. So let's turn to exploring how this imperative was once viewed and lived, and why the role, which now seems quite open to both sexes, come to be more strongly associated with men. No, the reason why they made women put the women in that provider role, even though they're not meant for that, was so that they can make more money off the taxes they create, and because women generally live longer than men and they outnumber men, right? So if you could go to your local restaurant like a Shake Shack, you'll see older women working behind the register. When I say older women, I'm talking about women in their 40s and their 50s working the grunt job, right? And you could get tax breaks. So that's one thing. In Greta in Greta Trusky society, The identification of economic success with risk taking is based on the material constraints of island life, which require that men range far and wide to gain a livelihood, often by besting others in competitive contests before colonization. Men fought and died to capture booty. They also had to go on risky deep sea fishing expeditions in order to feed their families. Taking part in open ocean canoe trips was a frequent means of showing the competence that conferred manhood. That is true because in order for you to go out there and hunt gazelle, to go out there and fish with shark and all kind of beast, that takes a lot of bravery in a man, and you have to be dominant, wise, and intelligent to do all that stuff, right? So that is a point, and black men do that. You could call that the dope game. Well, nigga has to sit on the corner and sell dope and risk life and freedom to bring money home. That's a form of that. Nigga has to work a 9 to 5 job during Jim Crow or during sharecropping and deal with KKK every day. That's a form of that. Or black men during the Nation of Islam who had to deal with Jim Crow racism. Or black men that were the Black Panthers. Or black men who was able to go out there and create stuff like Black Wall Street. I forgot what part of New Jersey where there were a group of black purchased land and built an all black town. And many other black cities and towns that black men built. That is a form of this, of what I just read, that black men often don't get valued for, right? When black men go off to go fight wars to defend this country, that is a version of that, right? In societies both past and present, if a husband desires to be considered a responsible man, he must contribute to the line of their income to support wife, family like a pillar. The modifier lion share. Mr. Fantastic used that on a show hosted by DJ on This Might Be Risky. I think it was Has Leadership Been Weaponized Against Men? Now, this part of manhood, leadership right here, when this was created, it wasn't weaponized against men. It was actually used as a positive against men. Today, it's weaponized against men, right? Let's continue. The modifier line is important here. Despite a mythic idea of the family, with wife staying home with the children and husband going out each day to earn a living, this was really never the norm in any culture at any time. Even in the 1950s, oh, that's going to break a lot of people's idea. Even in the 1950s in the United States, 1 out of 3 women worked outside the home. Interesting, that's a lot of women. Shit. Interestingly, so this is not mine. This is written from Europeans' mindset, brain, and he's doing an objective overview of all cultures. If he's saying 1 out of 3 women worked outside the home, even during a traditional setting, so what are these women talking about, and what are you dudes in the red spill manosphere space talking about, right? And this book was written in 2014. This predates the manosphere, I think, right? Let's go back. And I'm not saying that this is impossible. I'm saying that even in the 1950s, which was the era of more traditional, 1 out of 3 women worked outside the home. Do the maths on that. So that's a lot of women. Interestingly, up until even the last decade, the ratio of male-female contribution to provision was about the same across cultures and time. When Manhood in the Making was published in 1991, it had been calculated that worldwide women contribute 30 to 40% of the substance in all kinds of society, from the most primitive to the modern civilization. In pre-modern societies, that 30 to 40% contribution took the form of gathering, while men supplied the rest of the tribe's sustenance through hunting. Women were also responsible for the lion's share of the childbearing. Although hunter-gatherer men were relatively involved, more so than any dads up until the modern day. This is going to the role of the father, table 4. Mode of production: wealth variation, resident, father's direct care, father's contribution, marriage system. All right, so let's go here. Hunter gatherers, wealth variation, no. Multicultural, father's direct care, high. Father's contribution to family diet, moderate, high. Marriage system, monogamy. Uh, Horticulturist. I have to look up what these terms are, right? Wealth variation, low to moderate. Residence, patri or matriarchal. So it's either patriarchal or matriarchal. This is saying multi-local. Huh. I have to look up what these words mean right here. Patrilocal, patriarchal, neo-local. I have to look up what those are. Father directs care, moderate. Father's contribution to diet, low. Marriage system, polygamy. Hey, so for those of you talking about polygamy, the father's contribution to family diet is low. Father's direct care is moderate. Wealth variation, low to I think the wealth variation is dependent upon who's contributing who's contributing to the society, right? So under a polygamy, where it can either be patri or matriarchal, wealth variation low to moderate, father's direct care moderate, father's contribution low, and it's a polygamy. So let's just keep that in mind. Pastoralist. I don't know. I have to look up what these words mean right here, though. Let me see. This culture involves simple hoe farming, while agriculture refers to intensive irrigation or plow farming. Uh, So I guess that would mean it would consist of more of the men doing that since they're bigger and stronger. But I have to look up these later on, right? Agriculturists, very high, wealth variation. Patrilocal, father's direct care low. Father's contribution to family and diet high or very high. Polygyny. So okay. So this one is a bit better, right? Agriculturalists, very high, low, high, polygyny. Industrial states, very high, neolocal, moderate, moderate, monogamy. Mm. So I think this is what we are, right? At the bottom. So this is interesting. I have to go look up what these terms mean, right? Given the fairly egalitarian nature of most of our ancient societies, so it's saying that most of the societies was equal. Nature of most ancient society. Two questions then now: if both men and women acted as providers, why was there any especially heavy emphasis on provision as a manly role? And two, why did men end up shouldering more of the responsibility for the duties of production, while women were given more responsibilities over tasks related to reproduction? As the first question, provision was more emphasized as a male imperative because men responsibilities were of more actual vital nature, as Gilmore puts it, because male tasks so often involve contest and bloodletting rather than gentleness and patience. And because of their consequent win or loss nature, tasks are often harshly evaluated as performance. If women fail to collect vegetables, people may go hungry for a short period. But if men retreat in terror on the battlefield or s- battlefield or stop hunting, the tribe may well face destruction. Mm, let's read that again. It's asking if both people were providing, how is the responsibility more on the man? Let's go into this why. Because male tasks so often involve contests and bloodletting rather than gentleness and patience. And because of their consequent win or loss nature, these tasks are often harshly evaluated as to performance. If women fail to collect vegetables, people may go hungry for a short period. But if men retreat in terror on the battlefield or if they stop hunting, the tribe may well face destruction. Yo, you can link that to today, right? Women today, they decided to step out of their role of giving babies, right? They chose to break the social contract. It didn't really do anything to society. Society and the men were still pretty much able to push on. But as soon as the men start, well, let's put it this way: today, the women stepped away from the traditional roles, and it really didn't do anything. It really didn't have that much effect, right? Short effect. But now that the men are stepping away from their traditional roles, look how society's falling and leading towards destruction. So you could take this paragraph here and link it to today, right? Let's go to. We could trace the answer to question number 2 to basic anatomical. Okay, I'm not gonna. I want to skip to something, right? Oh, oh, I want to go into that too. All right, I want to skip to provision. All right, so let's go through it. Let's go through it today. Let's go through it today. We could trace the answer to question number 2 to basic anatomical biological difference between men and women. Men were more obvious pick for hunting because of their greater physical strength and expendability. Womb being more valuable than sperm, far from, which I don't know, that's crazy. Far from bucolic hobbies of the modern day, hunting and fishing in primitive times could be strenuous and dangerous, even fatal. A hunter might have to hack his way through thick jungle and avoid attack by predators and enemy tribes. And an island fish, how are you gonna say sperm that womb is more valuable than sperm? But men have to go through all that bullshit right there. And you need sperm to create more men to do this bullshit right here. That's crazy. Be strenuous and dangerous, even fatal. A hunter might have to hack his way through thick jungle and avoid attack by predators and enemy tribes. Look all that bullshit men have to go through. You telling me sperm is valuable as the womb? That's crazy. And if there's no sperm in that womb, you'll get no more men that's able to do this, right? Hunting and fishing expedition could also take on expeditions far from home. It would have been difficult, if not impossible, for pregnant and nursing mothers as well as their small children to come along. Thus, it made sense to our pre-modern ancestors for the woman to stay close to home, tending to the kid, gathering food. While it may be tempting to see plain old sexism as another factor at work in labor split, as Wikipedia points out, it's oh, so this is a book. Oh, so this is some off rip. I'm already able to sense some feminist shit going on in here. It is easy for Western educators to fall into the trap of viewing gatherer social and sexual arrangements in the light of Western values. One common argument is the sexual division of labor, with women doing most of the gathering while men concentrate on the game hunting. It might be imagined that this arrangement oppresses women, keeping them. Oh, he's speaking how modern women would view this. He's keeping them in a domestic sphere. However, according to some observers, hunter-gatherer women would not understand this interpretation, since childcare is collective, with every baby having multiple mothers and male carriers. The domestic sphere is not automatized or privatized, but an empowering place to be. In all hunter-gatherer societies, women appreciate the meat brought back to the camp by men. An illustrative account is Megan Basil's study of Southern Africa. Women like meat. Recent archaeology, archaeological research suggests that sexual division of labor was the fundamental organizational innovation that given Homo sapiens the edge over the Neanderthal, allowing our ancestors to migrate from Africa and spread across the globe. All of which is to say that while many moderns would view the hunter split as sexist, actual hunter gatherers probably didn't see it that way. And in fact, delegating the responsibilities of production and reproduction of this manner may have been precisely what allowed us to arrive at civilization where such a division is no longer necessary. Perhaps we can say that the split in responsibilities lacked in fairness. It made up for inharmonious efficiency, service to community and family. Okay, let's see. In southern Spain, men must seek to provision seek to provision dependence by contributing mighty to the family patrimony. This too is measured by efficiency, quotation by result. What counts again is performance in work role, measured in sacrifice or service to family needs. As with all the three Ps, the imperative to provide was seen as a civic duty, a charge that benefited an individual's man's personal and psychological development, while also strengthening the community as a whole. See, this, and they're talking about the first P, which is provision. This is valued and is seen as a civic duty. But when it comes to black men, it's not valued. As you read up here, right? The women appreciated men when they brought back big game to the damn table. In our culture, in black community today, it's whatever black men do or bring back to the table is not valued, even amongst the men. Right? The economic of primitive societies functioned through the sharing of resources and mutual exchange, so that the men hunted together in gangs and distributed their bounty to the tribe as a whole. Begging game, though it was proven, was driven more by a man's desire to but what buttress his manly reputation than to feed his own biological kin. Oh, let me read that again. Bagging game. Oh, they call that bagging game? That's crazy. Ha! Bagging game during this period was driven more by a man's desire to buttress his manly reputation than to feed his own biological kin. An able hunter strengthened the entire tribe, increasing his attractiveness to women and his honor among men. So, uh, in Spain, this was done. I want y'all to pay attention to this down here. Bagging, right? And remember, game at this time was associated with hunting, gathering, getting bounty. You know what I'm saying? And by doing this, mind you, today's term is to bag a chick. And you ain't got no game if you can't bag a chick, right? These are things that black men are valued for today, but it's seen as a negative today. But outside of black men and black culture and other societies, the men are valued and honored for this among the women and the men. But today, it's seen as a negative. Seen as a negative. Let's continue. As societies modernized and emphasis on individual earnings and ownership became more common, a man's primary duty was to provide for his immediate family. But this charge remained civically connected. A family that was self-reliant did not burden on the rest of society. Also, as we shall see below, a man who did well for himself was expected to generously share his wealth with the rest of the community, so that a boon for one man was a boon for everybody. Ooh, I want to read that again. I want to read something. A charge that benefited an individual man's personal and psychological development while also strengthening the community as a whole. So that go back to the quote that is often echoed throughout black culture and society. And you teach a man, you teach just an individual. But when you teach a man, you teach a nation. Nah, we gonna modify that quote. When you teach a man, that man is gonna improve his nation. When you teach a man, he's gonna grow his nation. He's gonna improve that nation. He's gonna build that nation into an empire. Right? Because as it says here, so that a boon for one man was a boon for everybody. A boon for one individual was a boon for one community. So to the Nation of Islam and anybody that's gonna watch this in the black community with all this black woman is God shit, nah, your black man is the God and the king. It's in your black man, your community is gonna rise up and be powerful. From the dependence to self-reliance. Here, I forgot. I don't know how to say his name. Here, the worker's reputation as a citizen and a man is closely bound up with clearly defined service to family. Who a man who shrieks his obligations, renounces his claim to both respectability and manhood. He becomes a despised gentleman and a wastrel. Again, the latter term means a reprobate who acts like a carefree child or lives parasitically off women. The first step, what? Parasitically off women. Why they don't call a woman parasite if he lives strictly off her man? That's crazy to me. So this kind of is what's happening today, right? Where the men today who want to like what you call soft guy era drizzle, who's from their obligations, they're looked at as less than a man. Here's the difference with today's environment. Today's environment, the woman or the family does not value this type of man. The woman and the family today is allowed to disrespect this type, and this type of man is looked at by the women and the other men as either a sucker. Well, hold on, let me rephrase that. Right? Then society, the women value type of man. Right? Today's society in the modern times, women don't value this man, right? Society today, because women have walked away from their traditional duties. Now, mind you, women walked away from their traditional duties. They're not being looked at as less of a woman or being a parasite to a man. But if a man today walks away from this type of duty, right? Today, he's going to look the same way as if he were back then. If he didn't streak away from his responsibilities, or if he did streak away from his responsibilities, or he walked away from his obligations, he was looked as he was shunned for it. The thing with then is that his family, his society, his woman valued that. Today they don't. This environment we're looking at right now is different from today's environment, right? The first step in a young man becoming an effective and respected provider was for him to attain a full and total independence. Dependency in a man was seen as shameful, as it was insurmountable hindrance to his ability to take care of others. A man could not provide for his own family if he was still relying on his childhood family for support. Damn. So this thing where a man has to be in service to his community and society, even though it's a powerful position, today it's weaponized against him. That's insane. In Morocco, as in Spain, a man must gain full and total independence from women as a necessary criterion of manhood. How can he provide for dependence and protect them when he himself is dependent like a child? Which is, I can understand that. This inversion of sex roles turns wife into subverts both man and the family unit, sending both down to a corruption and defeat. Um, I think Angry Man calls that the son husband thing. This right here is why the black community is failing. Angry Man calls this the son husband. Right? How can he provide dependence and protect them when he himself is dependent like a child? And that's probably how black women want black men to be dependent like a child. Because once you keep black men in a dependent childlike state, the women have complete control over them. This inversion of sex roles because this inversion of sex roles, because it turns wife into mother, subverts both the man and the family unit and sending both down to corruption and defeat. Becoming an independent man meant separating oneself from the nurturing caretaking of women, particularly one's own. demonstrating you can stand on your own 2 feet. Some cultures have rituals that vividly uh, democr- how you say demarcate a boy's departure from the women and entry into the world of men. For example, during some tribes' rites of passage in which a boy officially becomes a man, he is kidnapped from his mother's home and taken to live in the woods for a time with his fellow initiates. The boys are then taught the secrets of how to be men by the tribe's elders before they are brought back to live in the community again, now recognized as a full-fledged man. Among East African Samburu, as part of a boy's journey into manhood, he will ritually pass by his mother's hut for the last time and swear an oath to never drink milk sourced from within again. Considered a delicious delicacy, giving up milk constitutes a true sacrifice and thus demonstrates a resolve that amounts to a symbolic disavowal of dependency. It is an act of self denial by which the boy enacts to personally transform from receiver to giver of sustenance. Gilmore argues that the act is designed to demonstrate that the boy will no longer need mothering, that it reenacts the ritually whatever that word is. The charm meaning for it conveys a public confirmation that he has renounced the breast voluntarily in favor of delayed gratifications of work culture. Now, I want to talk about something. Um, to giver of sustenance. Now we have to ask. These things is what made men big and strong during this time period. These things is what made men valuable in a community during these times. As if today these things are weaponized against the man, right? Because what the women do is they receive from the man and don't give shit back. And see, the key that black, because black women is gonna say, see, black men are they're too mothered by their mother. The thing is, black men never got mothering in America, not need mothering anymore. They never got that mothering love to not have to need it or to be weaned off of it. So I get it if black men in America had that mother love, but they never got it in the first place. That's the thing, right? So let's continue. Messiah manhood is based not only on the warrior ethic but also the idea of economic independence. A high point of a boy's manhood is the sacrifice of his first ox. The major portion of his meat is then given to the boy's mother, an act that is described as thank you for her having reared and fed him as a boy. This ritual feeding of his mother symbolizes the boy's status reversal from consumer to provider of meat, and then thus indicates a responsible adult manhood. So it's like severing his ties, his attachment to his mother, and attaching it to himself, right? But it's like switching his roles to a provider, though. You know what I'm saying? It is not only in violent societies like the Zambia, the hunting prowess is a measure of manhood. For example, there are the utterly non-violent Mabutu Pygmy of the Congo region. Among these peaceable pygmies, boys must learn the requisite masculine skills, especially the hunting of big game, such as elephants, hunting supplies. The tribe not only would need with needed nutrients, but also with such indispensable materials of life as skins and bones. And with ritual paraphernalia, any man who falls short in hunting here has his manhood questioned and is put into the androgynous category of clown. Now, this is similar to gang culture. This is similar to gang culture if you think about it. When black men go out there and become a blood and crip, this is similar rituals in there. Or when you join the army or the Marines. So for early man, there wasn't really any choice as to what kind of work he could do or to fulfill the provider imperative. In an age before specialization, hunting was pretty much it. But what pre-modern men lacked in options was made up for in job that embodied ultra manly attributes. All right. Um, I want to go. All right, so I want to keep reading some of this because I think this is important for the stream, who's watching, and for who's going to watch this after, right? Because right now it's talking about the provider and provision role, right? Among Bushmen, men, a boy cannot be considered a man nor is permitted to marry until he has successfully made his first kill of an antelope. Elizabeth Marshall Thomas tells how boys in their late teens are initiated into manhood having shot their first buck. The qualities requisites to a hunter's success are those needed for success in any area of man's life. For it demands patience and discipline. Demonstrates a tenacity of purpose. Hunting is similar to warfare, and that is dangerous and risky endeavor that is structured as a win-loss proposition. You either bag the game or come home with food for your tribe, or you return empty-handed. Yo, listen how they say it: bag the game, bag a chick. If you can't talk to that chick, you ain't got no game. Bag the game. I want y'all to stick that in your brain, right? Or you return empty-handed or possibly not at all. Success requires the mastery of weapons and the honing of technique. It contains an element of sport as it involves not only pitting one's skill and determination against the beast, but against one's fellow men. So competition actually helps to grow men and make men stronger. So something about this um ritual, which men we kind of still do a lot of this today in modern times. Something about this, and I think Andrew Tate speaks about this a lot when he talks, right? So does Angry Man, so does a lot of guys in these spaces. This actually helps to build those traditional dominant roles, right? And it's like you're cutting this boy away from his mother so he can grow into his own manhood, his own masculinity. Let's see where else this goes. It contains an element of sport, right? So I already read that. While at the same time, each individual man wishes to demonstrate the greatest prowess to be the MVP, who plays an integral role in taking down the biggest game. A hunter's performance either adds to or diminishes his honor, establishing his pecking order within the tribe. Hunting is also primary creative act, for it is the primary means of extracting value from nature by literally transforming wild animals into food. The hunting provides one kit and kin, not only with protein, but clothing to protect their bodies from elements, and the items vital to the tribe's spirituality. In its feeding both body and spirit, its nourishing and sustaining of life, it acts as counterpart to female reproduction, and thus can be seen. Gilmore convincingly argues as a form of indirect and often misunderstood male nurturing. Mm, let's read that again. Hunting is also primarily creative act, for it is the primary means of extracting value from nature by literally transforming wild animals into food. The hunt provides one kit and kin, not only with protein but clothing to protect their bodies from the elements. The items vital to the tribe's spirituality. In its feeding of both body and spirit, is nourishing and sustaining of life. It acts as a counterpart to female reproduction, and thus can be seen, Gilmore convincingly argues, as a form of indirect, often misunderstood male nurturing. Uh, Finally, just as the procreator role, man, this is the one I want to get to. Finally, just as the procreator role, man acts as the pursuer of a prize. Thus, hunting is a creative act that parallels battle, sport, and sex. Given that all variables of manhood, economy, skill, hardiness, and sexuality come together, most directly and dramatically, both in symbol and in the fact of putting meat on the table. Hunting may truly be called the provisioning function of pair excellence, the vital importance of autonomy. Real men are real men are expected to tame nature in order to recreate and bolster the basic kinship units of their society, to create something of value from nothing. Manhood is a kind of male procreation. Its heroic quality lies in its self-direction and discipline, and its absolute self-reliance in word. Its agitational autonomy. There's one more important element that underlies not simply the manly nature of hunting, but upon which all the three P's of manhood depend: personal autonomy. Autonomy involves the absolute freedom of movement or mobility action. It means being able to make your own decision, call your own shots, and create your own goals, set your own pace, carve your own path. Which this right here is where black men is the key that black men are missing right here. This line right here, personal autonomy. This right here is what black men are all missing. This key. Equally important as sex and economic resourcefulness is, the underlying appeal to an action as the starting point of self identity. This is where black men. This is the key that black men are missing right here. Manhood is an earned state. A title. Hold on. Before I go into that, there's a P that they didn't talk about in here, and I think they did that shit on purpose. Give me 1 second. Um, I think they did that shit on purpose. All right, let's go here. Procreate. This is the one I'm talking about. The three P's of manhood. Procreate. We're gonna go back to the one I was at, but we're gonna talk about this. Welcome back to our series of the three P's of manhood: protect, procreate, and provide. All right. Let's see. Man as procreator. Now, this is the part that I wanted to read. That black men today, they're saying that a black man should not be valued based on his ability to procreate with many women. Right? Now, as I stated, the three P's of manhood is a call to action. As stated in this article, it's a call to action. It's something that most societies do. It's a standard by a standard. Maybe it may vary from different type of societies based on their cultures, but it's still an objective standard, right? So the objective standard is something that all men agree to before my time, before your time, before America's time, in ancient times. This is the objective standard of man, right? Uh, let me read the let me read this up here. As we continue on, I want to remind readers that these articles are largely descriptive rather than wholly prescriptive. That is, they offer a look at the core standards of manhood that are common to almost every culture. So there you go again. Standards of manhood that are common to almost every culture, but they do not necessarily endorse the idea that every aspect of these standards should be perpetuated. These traditional male, I wonder why you're saying that. Traditional male imperatives are neither good nor bad in and of themselves. It is how they lived and enforced that matters. I believe a man must first understand these stripped down fundamentals that are common through centuries of masculinity and filter them through his moral and religious belief to determine their weight in his life. Now, I made that same argument about black men and their ability to procreate, right? It's natural in its essence. It's just that how it was used during slavery that made it a negative. But other cultures before slavery, before the enslavement of black men though in this country, it was seen as a positive thing. But today it's seen as a negative thing, right? Let's look into it. The imperative to procreate essentially requires that a man act as a pursuer of women, successfully impregnate her, a large vigorous family that expands his lineage as much as possible. One of the three P's, I think, the charge to procreate probably has the least resonance with modern men and would be the most controversial. I wonder why it's controversial. There are many reasons for this. Beyond the fact that procreate is a word little used these days and tends to remind one of an old preacher who employs it as a euphemism for sex. Proponents of the population growth movement will say that the imperative to have children wholly outdated. This is mainly like the feminist people, right? So let's go read this again. Proponents of the zero population growth movement will say the imperative to have children is wholly outdated. Listen to that again. That's something that the feminists will say. that while begetting numerous offspring might have threatened societies in the past, which it did, now has a very opposite effect. How so? Those who simply don't want children, that's the question. How is it not in today's world when the population are decreasing and the societies are getting weaker, how does this have an opposite effect? Right? Those who simply don't want to have children will chafe at the idea that the decision should amount to anything more than personal preference. Feminists will say that the idea that men should be pursued of is sexist, as it has roots in violence against women and treats them as a prize to be won. So, is it sexist for the woman to be a pursuer of men? That's my question. Because the women who engage in hookup culture and hot girl summer and 3 or 4 phase, they're pursuing men for sex. So, are they pursuing men as their prize to be won? Because 3 or 4 and hookup culture, all of those are feminist constructs. And a woman that's moving in her sexuality in that way, that's empowering. It's not seen as sexist, right? Religious folk might otherwise be very receptive to the injunction to multiply and replenish the earth, may at the same time be uncomfortable with the fact that in some cultures it was acceptable to accomplish this charge with a woman who is not your wife or with multiple wives. Now, this is where this is where this is what this is interesting because black men and women, they're coming from an African society and specifically Western Africa, where a lot of the slave trade took place, right? And in Western Africa, that's Nigeria and Ghana, they practice polygamy. In Western culture and society, um, it's more monogamous because monogamy in Western culture is built off of Christianity. That's the religion. And even though they practice procreate, they're doing it with one monogamous chick or lady or woman, and they're multiplying with just one female, one man, one woman, instead of multiple wives or with somebody else's wife. With somebody else's wife, that could cause issues because now you're violating and disrespecting that man's house, and that woman is cheating on that man and disrespecting that man. That can cause problems, right? Now, because African culture, which is, or I think, an African culture, where it's more polygamy, where you have multiple wives, that can be in conflict to Western culture, where it's monogamy, right? So now, if you have black men in a modern times, free of the prior religion, prior slave master, and he could be free to engage into the hookup culture and whatever, right? He could take on multiple wives, not even just black wives. He could take on black wife, Latin wife, white wife. He could take on Keisha, Becky, and Maria and get all three of them pregnant and have a mixed race, multi amalgamated family unit. He could have that, and that can go against what the nuclear family structure is in America. And I can see that conflict. I can see why they say, black should engage in monogamy because that's how the country was built. And black men were engaging in monogamy during the 50s, during the 40s, during that time. They performed better doing that than they did with polygamy back in Africa, right? But another argument can be made that we don't want black men fucking our wives or messing with other women outside of his race. That could be what that means, right? And it could be that the greater society, which a lot of them are still bloomers and baby bloomers that are around Jim Crow, that might have a lot of those racist mindsets, they could be thinking, well, we wouldn't mind if black men were doing this with their own group of women, but now they're free to do it with our women. Well, guess what? Liberals, if you and conservatives, if you are not fucking with black man with the black man's woman, if you are not programming his woman to go against him, he would do this with his own women. But you chose to fuck with his woman and program his woman against him by passing certain welfare laws. So if you wasn't messing with his woman and programming his woman to rebel against him, he would have stuck with his woman. He wouldn't have to be dating your woman. So if you want to get mad at black men are free to sleep with your white with Becky, that's your fault for with his woman in the first place. Now, and people of all stripes will likely be uncomfortable embracing a standard of manhood that is not completely within a man's control. A lazy man can get his butt in gear and become a good provider. And a timid man can bite the bullet and become a courageous protector. But as we shall see below, in many cultures, infertility was always considered the fault of the man. There wasn't anything he could do about it. Finally, unlike the charge to can provide, the duty to procreate lacks the same self-sacrificing hero quality that stirs one's higher yearnings. It is more base. It is base, more biological, and I can see that, right? Because in order to protect and provide, as a man, you got to get out your ass and hunt and grind and gain those dominant masculine traits. To procreate, you can be a lazy nigga and just fuck all day, create children, have sex all day, create all kind of kids. You don't really got. All you got to do is just your pipe game got to be good, and you just got to be horny. So that's why in this part he says that a man can be courageous and be a be a good provider, or be courageous and be a good protector, right? But see, these things, provider and protector, there's a reason why those things came first, so that you could correct those traits of a man, so that when you become to procreate, you can now protect family and raise that family into a better heights. As I said in the last article, that a boon for a man is a boon for his family. So a protection, vision, and competition, that develops a man into being a strong man. That way, when he has a family, that family can also be strong along with him, or raise up with him, right? Or grow with him, right? Yes, it would seem that every conceivable segment of our present day population might have reasons to take issue with the idea of procreation as a fundamental male imperative. Yet, this charge has been a core component of a code of manhood from the beginning of time. I want to read that again. As a fundamental male imperative, yet this charge has been the core component of the code of manhood from the beginning of time, all around the world. So, procreation, or the of procreation, has been part of manhood, masculinity, or code of manhood all across the world, regardless if it was used in polygamy or monogamy. It was seen as a code of masculinity, as a positive. Now, when it comes back to black men, now it's shifting into being something negative, right? When black men were in slavery, it was used as a positive by slave masters to create and breed more slaves. Now that the slave master has no more control over black men and our capabilities, it become a negative. I want to say that again. During slavery, when the slave master had more control over black men's breeding capabilities, because they were breeding more children to create more black labor, more black workforce. Now that white men, the former slave master, has no control over the black man's breeding capabilities, now it's seen as a negative. And even further, black men's breeding capabilities for a time was strictly stuck to his woman, to his black woman. In other words, white men didn't give a shit if he was just fucking and mating with his own black woman. Now that black men is able to sue and fuck white women and potentially wipe out his race or create a next generation of mixed half breeds, now the part of procreation in the context of black men is a negative. And let me tell white people of society where you fucked up at, right? Y'all allow liberals to push Planned Parenthood, and you allow liberals to push welfare state. You allow you allow feminism and liberals to be pushed upon black women, making it difficult for black men to mate with black women and create a stronger breed of stronger race of black folks or bigger race of black folks here in America because you wanted to depopulate black men with black people with Planned Parenthood and you wanted the black woman to rebel against the black man. So if you want anybody to blame, it's white society's fault at that time. Because if you were not creating programs to take away black women from black men and giving black women the power to usurp the black man's authority in his house and use his children against him, he would still be mating with his own black woman and procreating with his own black. He wouldn't have to go to your women now. And it's not like he's just going to your women. Your women are allowing the sex between a black man and a white woman today is all consensual and free will. It's not forced. So to the white society, to the white liberals, and to the conservatives, this is your fault. In fact, it will be argued by anthropologists like Napoleon Chagnon that not only is the imperative to procreate a fundamental part of the three Ps of manhood, it applies the other two. And practically all male behavior. A man seeks to develop and demonstrate the smarts and strengths needed to be a good protector and provider in order to win a mate and beget offspring with her. Once he forms his family, he then strives to continue to provide and protect them, which is to say, the motivation to provide and protect is often ultimately derived from the motivation to procreate. Thus, no matter how squeamish a discussion of procreation makes us, why is it making y'all squeamish? Is it making you squeamish because it's going to upset women? Because, or how women are going to feel about it? Last time I checked, women want to have children too. And they have to go through a man to get children. Right? That's why it's squeamish. And without the man, there would be no woman or child. And I'm going to go through into that too. Right? Procreation is a civic duty. Civic duty. Procreation is a civic duty. Right? How come now for black men it's a negative now when procreation was a civic? Let's read on this tribe. Let's read about this tribe right here, right? Since we can respect indigenous tribe and their civic duties, but we don't want to respect black men and our civic duty to procreate, right? The birth of his first child is an important event for a Sambia man. It is the de jure, the attainment of manhood. To be fully masculine, a Sambia man must not only marry, but father some children. Having many children is one of the many social functions that constitute the notion of a cultural competence, which, which directly enhances group security in impregnating his wife. The Sambia man has proved himself competent in social functions. Not so far away among the Baru of the Angaya territory, a man gains prestige with each succeeding birth until he truly becomes a man. That is the father of at least four children. Hey, Bomboclad, you know man. Bomboclad, you know man. Didn't I just show y'all a clip yesterday? And shout out to Michael J. White, and I respect his decision, where he was basically saying that this type of that a black man's value that value is only on a black man. And now how Michael J. White substantiated his argument was because it was used as a negative from slavery. But this is the same value across the board for every man in their culture, especially with this culture. And it says you don't become a man unless you have fathered at least four children in that culture. But it's not seen as a negative in the Zambian man culture. Procreation is a civic duty. Every society erects standards for manhood that are designed to motivate men to overcome the passivity and timidity inherent in human nature. So I mean that you don't want a man to be fucking lazy. Because what? He is the head of that house. He's the leader. You don't want your leader to be lazy of your society. So you create standards for them to perform, to do something, to become better, right? Um Now, There's a saying on YouTube that says, "A man is not what he does; he is a man is who he is, not what he does." Now, this right puts man into doing things, and this is a standard that has been across the board. Now, two things can be true at the same time. A man can be who he is, and a man can be what he does. Because a lot of time of who he is as a man, it pushes him to go do the things he need to do, right? So if my masculinity, um, who I am as a man is uh, to protect and provide, I'm gonna go out there and make that money because it's a form of providing. I'm gonna go out there and learn how to fight because that's who I am. I'm a protector, I'm a provider. So I'm gonna go out there and get money, and I'm gonna learn how to out there and kick some ass and learn how to fight. Right? That could be part of the identity too. Something in a man's identity drew you to become a good rapper. Something in your identity drew you to become an electrician. Maybe something in your identity likes to work on electrical work. Right? So let's keep going. A man must demonstrate what Gilmore calls cultural competence. He must be useful, effectual of his service to his family and his people. In striving to live in the three P's, a man wins honor for himself and gains the other benefits as well, while at the same time contributing to society's collective stability, security, and power. In this way, the mode of manhood benefits both the individual and the group. Again, this uh, connects with that, or this kind of counters that quote that says that when you teach, let me get up the quote. When you teach a man they like to take this quote, right? Shit. They like to Malcolm quote, right? When you teach a man, you teach a community. When you teach a woman, you raise a nation. Hold on. This is what Malcolm X said. When you teach a man, you teach a community. When you teach a woman, you raise a nation. Wait. That's not what y'all been fucking echoing. That's not what y'all been saying. Wait. When you teach a man, you teach that's not what the Nation of Islam been saying. Y'all been mis Malcolm X. And teaching the community basically like raising a nation? Come on, man. That ain't what y'all been saying. This is the quote that Malcolm X took. If you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a family. This is the quote that they took from this brother right here, all right? This guy. When you educate a man, educate an individual, but if you educate a woman, you educate a family, a nation. All right. This is what they took from right here. This is a quote they took. Even though here with Malcolm X said, when you teach a man, you teach a community. Because Malcolm X was a man that taught his community and raised a nation. If you have a community of women that you're teaching, when you teach a man, he's going to teach a community of other men and his women. Those men are going to teach the women. Those women are going to take what they learn from the men and raise that nation with it. So y'all repeat Malcolm X, or and then y'all will misquote Malcolm X, or then you won't think about the quote that y'all, or y'all will misquote the motherfucker in general. But here, this is the quote right here. When you educate a man, you educate an individual, but when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Which is funny because you need a man to impregnate a woman to give birth to a nation. So when you teach that individual, he'll educate his woman, and that woman will educate that nation. So you need the man to teach a woman to teach the nation. And y'all take how black culture, they'll take this quote and say and make it seem as if when you educate the woman, the woman will raise it better than the man, or it's better to teach the woman than teach a man. How has that been working out for the black community so far? Right. So let's go back. So this quote, this right here, um, what it says right here, when it says to society's collective stability, security, and power in this way. Let me read it right. In striving to live the three Ps, a man wins honor for himself and gains other benefits as well, while at the same time contributing to society's collective stability, security, and power. In this way, the code of manhood benefits both the individual and the group. So, when we talk about manhood, when it says we benefit the man, it'll benefit the group. When you get a great boon for a man, it'll be a great boon for the community. With that quote that they take from Malcolm X, separates the man and the woman. It says when you educate the woman, it'll educate the nation. So this quote separates the man from the woman. Malcolm X quote, it kind of puts them together, but it sounds as if when you teach the man, you teach a community. When you teach a woman, you raise a nation. But if that man is teaching that community, it's also teaching the nation, which also raises the nation. So both these quotes separate man from woman, or you could take it that way. I know I take it that way. But anybody with common sense would take it that way. We could look at that and say that takes it that way. But this, on the other hand, when in this way, the code of manhood benefits both the individual and the group. This puts the group and it connects the man and the group together, while those other codes separated. So we gotta look into a lot of these quotes that's being said in the black community. A lot of these quotes, in their words, it separates the woman from the man, and it puts the man above the woman. How could Malcolm X say this quote, you teach a community, but when you teach a woman, you teach raise a nation? Isn't the community and the nation the same thing? And this way, a man, you educate an individual, but when you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Doesn't a man have to that individual has to educate that nation and lead that nation? Right here, it puts the woman above the man in these quotes. With this one, and it separates it with these quotes, right? With this one, with this one, right? It puts the man above the group, not just women, but it puts them together. It's saying if I educate the man, it'll benefit the group too. Or if the code of man benefits both the individual and the group. So it's putting them together as those other quotes separated. Well, explore this dynamic and its implication in the modern world, where manhood isn't honored or valued in a separate post at the end of the month. Oh. Well, we'll explore this dynamic and its implications. Oh, so they're going to explore it. When home ties are loosened, when men and women cease to regard a worthy family life, where all its duties fully formed and all its responsibilities lived up to, as the life best worth living, then evil days for the commonwealth are at hand. There are regions in our land and classes of our population where the birth rate has sunk below the death rate. Surely it should need no demonstration to show that willfully sterility is, from the standpoint of the nation, from the standpoint of the human race, and the sin for which the penalty is national death. Race death, a sin for which there is no atonement. No man, no woman can shrink the primary duties of life, whether for love or ease and pleasure, for and retain any other cause, and retain his or her self-respect. Theodore Roosevelt. See, this is some man shit right here. And this is what we're doing today. This is why populations around the world are decreasing. Because the women have lost the value in manhood and masculinity, and the men have to fuck it too. But see, when the women had lost value in masculinity, because men still valued themselves, the world kept turning. It kept moving. Now that the men have lost value in their own masculinity, now the world is starting to fall. Right? That's why we modern tend to think of sex and children in terms of our own personal pleasure. That's the problem. Everybody's self-absorbed. In the ages past, procreation was seen as a civic duty. The number of children a man begets strengthened these societies on a variety of fronts. The more members a community had, the more hands there were to gather and produce food and goods, and most importantly, to serve as protectors. The size of one's village, along with its men, reputation for fierceness was a crucial deterrent in convincing enemies not to even attempt to attack. That's why the mafia, the mobsters, right? The Italian mob. That's why they had those big fucking puffy suits with them big menacing suits, tall, big old Italian dudes. That's why they did that to make themselves look fierce. Don't even fuck over here. Fuck around over here. That's why the Russians are like they were. Black men used to be like that during the Nation of Islam is still like that. But black men used to be like that. And I want y'all to pay attention, right? If you're creating a divide between black and black women, and black women are going to the the bat panel clinics and they're deleting children, the bad pan the bad pan I remember that wash belly clinics. Just saying that Jamaica wash belly clinics. If they go into the wash belly clinics, wash where them belly, right? Them pumpkin belly, they must squash them pumpkin belly. How could you grow a community, or how can you grow a solid community, and then build up the men's reputation for being fierce? Right now, we're feminizing black men, and then on top of that, you having black men saying to have dick discipline. Now, there's two sides to dick. One side to dick discipline is to you know, not to spread your Johnson out and smash as many women. The other side to having Johnson discipline is to smash women, to go out there and have sex with as many women. Both of those are dick discipline. Why is that? You need discipline to be able to manage multiple women and have sex with multiple women. You know what I'm saying? Having dick discipline is that while you're smashing multiple women is to make sure you have a condom on, make sure that she's taking contraceptives, making sure you're getting tested. So in other words, you're not having sex with multiple women without first protecting yourself and making sure she's getting protected. The other part of dick discipline is not having sex at all. You know what I'm saying? So that's two sides to dick discipline. But if you have the men saying, which I agree with that, okay, you got to vet with a woman properly and you got to play the numbers game to find a good woman to have a wife. Nowadays, when you're vetting, it takes you about 5 to 10 years to vet a woman, right? It starts off during the dating phase. You maybe 1 to 2 years before you can say she's girlfriend or boyfriend. Then you have to vet her another 5 to 7 years just to get her pregnant, maybe once or twice, right? What the responsible thing is to do. And black men cannot do that with every black woman if you choose to deal with, well, you can't do that with any woman, to be honest with you. But in black culture, if your plan is to have a black family, it's difficult to do that with the present black woman you have today, right? Because you cannot do that with just any black chick. You got to find a black chick that has that same mindset as you, which is very rare to find in today's environment or climate, where everybody's following sex and ice spice. So now, when you have black women going to the wash belly clinics and black men being more responsible with who they get pregnant, which is a good thing, it's a type of population control because now less children are being born of that. Even though I agree with that discipline on the men's side being dick discipline, on the woman's side being box discipline with their vagina, right? And but at the same time, it's going to take longer for y'all to build a community and a society because now black women have a more feminist mindset, and even though black men want to be men because of black feminist mindset, he has to be careful about what black women deal with, and that's a big numbers game. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna by the time you date a chick for 10 years and get married to her, you're gonna have about two. You might be able to have one or two kids, two or three kids, children max. And then mind you, within that process, if you don't meet, if your plan is to only get her pregnant after marriage, if during that process she's not a manageable person and you have to walk away from each other, you now have to go back into the dating game and play the big numbers game again. So then there's that, right? But notice this was a positive thing to have four more children and have a big size of one's village along with its men, right? So I want to point out something here. The number of children men begat strengthened those societies on a variety of fronts. The more members of a community had, the more hands were to gather and produce fruits and goods, and most importantly, serve as protectors. The size of one family, along with its men, reputation for fierceness was to deter and convince an enemy to even attempt to attack. Right? Mind you, black men engaging in this in this day and age is considered he's a pookie or ray, and it's a negative. And we're not to be valued by this, even though this was a civic duty, and this is a positive value on a black man on men outside of black men's for black men it's a negative today. Outside of this is a positive. During slavery, black men's ability to procreate was a positive to create more slaves to build up to create more slave labor. Today is a positive. It's a negative because today teach black men and black women to use this to build up a bigger black community, a stronger black community. But today it's seen as a negative. As among the Trusky and the Mediterranean societies is looked at, the New Guinea man of respect must spread his seed and multiply, although these men regard sexual relations with measure of anxiety. They're expected to overcome these inhabitations and reproduce sexually, just as they are exhorted to produce economically and militarily, to take on commanding role in trading and oratory. Reproduction is not a personal pleasure, it's a very conscious, perceived as a social obligation and a measure of good citizenship. Given the dangers of highland life, especially hovering military threat, the society needs offspring to endure. The bigger the village, the less militarily. None dare attack a place of many armed men. Stress and reproduction to build up numbers is impressed forcefully upon the boys as a civic duty. But with black men, it's perceived as a negative. All then it's a civic duty, and it's to build their society to being stronger. We could socialize black men to see it this way instead of saying talking about black men taming that or seeing it as a negative. As we will explore more in depth in the article, universal of a real man in cultures all over the world was whether he produced more than he consumed, whether he created and added value in all areas of life, or whether he was a parasite, a man who failed in all constructive masculine pursuits. Thus, he who didn't strengthen society by siring numerous children was seen as a weak link, and thus unworthy of the title of man. So, to Michael John White, brother, I respect you and I fucks with you heavy. Like I said, you inspired me to do martial arts. You and Wesley Snipes. But and I get what how you substantiate your argument because of how the act of procreation was used as a negative during slavery. But other cultures didn't see it as a negative. Other cultures saw this as a positive. This was a standard that all men followed, even in other indigenous tribes, outside of black men. Even before black men came over here to slavery, it was that in Africa, whether they were polygamous or monogamous. Right? Um, it's just crazy that black men, now that we are free and we have money and power, so now that black men are free to cover protection provisioning, now everybody wants to control our ability to procreate. And let's go into why I think that is. Because I think I said it. You see, Michael John White, he brought up something that a lot of black men are able to do. Poor women without money and provisioning. Black men have the ability in a natural essence because of our melanin and our testosterone to naturally pull women to us and get women find us actually sexually attractive because of our dominant masculinity, right? And we were able to do this without the power, money, and influence. We was able to do this without that stuff, as Michael John White put out. I'm able to do it, right? And now, in a more racially tolerant world, now that that extreme threat of racism is not there, and black men are able to come into money and power, protection, and provisioning now he has those two things on top of his natural ability to pull women and procreate. So now black men can actually do the three P's and might even surpass or go on neck and neck or on par with his white male counterpart. Now, I'm not a white man who's going to watch this. I'm not attacking you in general. I'm attacking the white men of today. I'm attacking those old racist mindsets and mentalities that unfortunately still exist today amongst the bloomers that were like Joe Biden that was around during Jim Crow. That's what I'm attacking. I'm not attacking white men in general. I'm not attacking the white men of today. I'm attacking those old racist mindsets that still exist somehow. Right now, we in a more racially tolerant society. Black men can get into the protection and provisioning part. Now they're saying that procreation is bad. Now they're saying sexual procreation or a man being valued for sexual procreation is a negative. When in other cultures before slavery in America on black men, it was valued amongst other cultures. I still to this day, it's considered a civic duty, but it's not a civic duty when it comes to black men doing it. I wonder if it's because now white women are now able to be attracted to black women. He has the protection and the provisioning part. And the reason why I say a white woman, because again, those old racist mindset principles still exist. Every time you see a black dude with a white, everybody shit their bricks. Especially Dr. Umar Johnson. As we will explore in more depth. Oh, I think I read that. Okay, but why would I need the extra push to procreate anyway? The sexual drive powerful enough that it could be left to follow its natural course. The urge to copulate may indeed be quite potent, but as well we shall see, is also an endeavor fraught with risk from which a man might be tempted to shrink. Hot pursuit. Sexual shyness is more than a casual flaw in an adolescent youth. It is a serious, even tragic inadequacy. The entire village, behemoths, what? Bemoaned shyness as a personal calamity, a collective disgrace. People said that Lorenzo was afraid of girls, afraid to try his luck, afraid to gamble in the game of love. So even they use game. But when niggas, black men use game, it's something negative. But when they use the word game, it's positive. Oh, it's the game of love. They believe a real man must break down the wall of female resistance that separates the sexes. Otherwise, God forbid, he will never marry with sire no heirs. If that happens, everyone suffers for children of God's gift to family, village, and nation. Key to fulfilling one's role as procreator was acting as the initiator, and that requirement began with the seduction process. In cultures across the world, the man is expected to make the first move, engage in aggressive courtship, and not fear rejection as he does so. If it that sounds familiar as it is today, if it takes two to tango, how did the charge to initiate courtship and seduction end up on the man's feet? Well, the reality of it, that's a good question. If it takes two to tango, how that's a good question. That's what we. That's what the issue is today between a man being in a leadership position and a woman being in a following position. I can lead all out day long, but if that woman is not willing to follow my lead, there is not going to be. It would not be a family. That's as if I don't take the charge to lead myself over there. There will be no family to follow my lead for that to happen by will. Just like she has to earn her position in my space for me to want to lead her. So it's a two-way thing, right? Well, the reality of it, even if unpleasant to acknowledge and contemplate, can likely be traced to male anatomy and polygamy. While a woman can only grow a maximum of babies in a room at a time, as creators of limitless amount of sperm, the number of children a man can produce is hypothetically limited only by the time he can invest in population. Since we're all biological organisms driven to reproduce our kind, and since men generally have more randy inducing testosterone, it has long been thought and behavior known out that men have a higher sexual drive than women, and men can hypothetically act on the drive whenever he wishes. Since the sexual act, the male is the penetrator and the woman is the penetrator. It is possible for a man to not only initiate sex, but to do so without the woman's consent. In primitive polygamous societies, because some men had multiple wives, it also meant that some had none, forcing those men to undertake dangerous raids on neighboring villages to rape their women and kidnap to be wives. Damn. I mean, you too. Sorry, I meant to say rape or SA. My bad. Oh, yeah. Let's go through this right here, right? This right here. Let's go through the first paragraph. Uh, this is probably why the men um, can have sex with multiple women, right? Because of because of their what you call um, their fertility. Remember, a woman grows a baby in a belly in her baby within the first 9 months. After that first 9 months, she got to rest her body to take care of that baby. So there is no sex or copulation going on between them. So in a polygamous society, man would go sleep with another woman or go have sex with another woman and reproduce with two or three other women within that same after he squirted up into that woman within her 9 months of caring for that baby, he could have sex with two women and do the same thing with two other women, hoping that society grow. Right now, the knock, as this is saying, with polygamy, primitive polygamous societies, is that even though some men had multiple wives, it also meant that some had none, forcing those men to undertake dangerous raids on neighboring villages to rape their women. Now, this is probably why monogamy is the best way to go for all societies, right? Because now if you go on a dangerous raid to raid somebody else's village and take their women, that village could go to war with your village, and now you're at war, right? This right here is probably what the white men in our society who still has those Jim Crow racist ideas. This is what they believe. I think they believe, and why they keep telling black men to be monogamous. The only difference in this day and age, ain't nobody black raping no other group of women. Asian women and white women are coming over here. It's all consent by free will. If you see a black man with a white woman, that's all consensual and free will. Not that's not forced. Right? So this is probably what the white men with those Jim Crow racist, the remnant of the Jim Crow racism in their brain. This is probably what they think. But this is something that they engaged in too, though. European cultures engaged in this, right? They even engaged in this. If you go pick up a book by the name of called "The Daughters of the Slave Trade," they engaged in that. They had white men that they had a monogamous relationship with a wife in Europe. And when they went to Africa during the slave trade and they were marrying Ghanaian women, they had a whole nother side family in Ghana with a black wife and created an interracial children. And those Europeans were supposed to be monogamous. So while they was monogamous, they engaged in polygamy, right? But this is probably why in those primitive times, polygamy was dangerous. This also you can also look with this in monkeys or primates or gorillas, right? Well, oftentimes the gorillas will fight each other, fight to get the most women over the women that's there. You even see this amongst bull elephants, where you see two bull elephants fight each other over the to get with the female elephant to create offspring, right? So that's what the political society is right here. So those of you saying is polygamy better or is monogamy better? I'm saying, and I think in our society when we have capitalism, where every man is able to go out there and make money and provide and protect and provision, and be in a monogamous situation, it kind of evens and levels the playing field, right? Um, hmm. You see this in black culture too, in low income college houses with the Pookie and Ray Ray, where he be smashing all the chicks, and we used to have 4 or 3 Pookie smashing all the chicks, and but you don't see no dangerous raids going on in the black culture. They fight each other though and shoot each other, but you don't see no dangerous raids when they're gonna go rape or essay another other women. You know what I'm saying? But you do see the polygamous thing in black culture, mainly in primarily in the projects or the low income housing. All right. As societies modernized and monogamy became the common standard, men gained more equal shot at finding a mate. And the more religious codes developed that sought to temper and channel man's sexual energies towards one woman at a time. Kidnapping and raping got from the wife procurement process, but the charge to be the initiator remained. As mentioned last time, a fundamental standard of manhood is a vigorous embrace of the risk of competition, thus besting other suitors to win the heart of a lady and risking rejection and asking for a hand continue to be seen as inherently manly behaviors. What began as a rational for violence transformed into a chivalrous act. Some were taught to be stoic, and women supposed to be had more tender feelings. The men willingly shouldered the risk of doing and asking, and potentially weathering the sting of being turned down. It became just a thing to do. A procreator, like fighting and breadwinning, sexual intercourse is thus also a risky business for trust trustee men. A question of winning or losing for a demand can either do the job or not. depending on how his organs work. Of course, is a contest in which it is only the man who can lose and not the woman. That see, that doesn't put any work on a woman to do because I agree with this, but I disagree with it at the same time. Because the woman could do some shit to kickstart the nigga, make him more sexually, attracted to her and shit. She could be able to do some things in the base in the damn bedroom. It take two to tango. Right. The risk and responsibilities of being initiated and continued in the bedroom, central to fulfilling the operator role, was demonstrated viral fertility and sexual competence. And this meant both being able to please one lover and simply being able to get it up. See, this one it says both being able to please, right? Well, there were certainly cultures where a woman's sexual satisfaction was ignored. In many, if a man was unable to satisfy his lover, his manly reputation suffered. Gilmore writes. Damn, 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 damn. Uh. And all this shit is weaponized men today. Oh, give me 1 second. I'm getting a call. All right, I'm back, guys. Okay, so let's go into it. Fighting, drinking, and defying the sea are not all measures of manhood. A trustee man must prove competence in other arena. Sex to maintain faith in the sexual act. The trust true Kisi man must be the initiator, totally in command. Success of sexual act depends only on his performance, and every love affair he is totally tested. Like I don't know how to say that word, or the what? I don't know how to say that word. And the Italians, the trustee man must be potent, have many lovers, bring to orgasm time again. It's just the erotic abilities again, phrase in idiom, not the love of charm, but of pure physical competence. If he fails to satisfy her, the woman looks at him. He is ashamed of being infatual and significant his failure to perform is by jibs and insults that liken him to a baby because he's incapable of performance. The standard insult for a man who performs badly is the advice their breasts like a baby. Bro, I don't think the men at that time thought that this could be weaponized against the men of the future. Cause that literally is what's going on today, right? The women weaponize this against the men, and men weaponize this against other men. Right? This is why men go out of their limb today to enlarge their penis, to take drugs. You know what I'm saying? Damn. See, this right here, it puts a lot of standards on the man, but it doesn't put anything on the woman that they're to be able to do. The only thing it says is that you're supposed to be consensual and you're supposed to accept reject. And even the women today weaponizes that against the men. So um there are things that we could take from this, bring it into today, and use what we now know today, mold it with this, and create something better and new. Because this doesn't put anything on a woman on what she has to do, but of her to now have the same mindset of what the woman supposed to be able to do to get this, because this is a premium fucking man right here. If she get it, a man has to be able to do all of this, right? This is a premium masculine man right here, top tier type of man right here that he could do all this. Now this shaman shit right here, this got to be taken out. This got to be taken out, or at least with all we know now, at least give men something, some kind of natural thing he can eat that can improve that. You know what I'm saying? Or at least teach the woman to help him with that or something. Impotence was considered incredibly emasculating, since it robbed the man of even the chance to please his partner, and more important, to attain the accumulation of what the sexual act aimed at, fathering children. Well, the woman can help him with that. She could do something. She could be more sexual. She could do those things to help him do that. Right? Thus, this my lady has been a source of anxiety for men and cultures across the world, right up to until the present day. One need only look at the almost comically manly imagery, working with machinery, pulling horses through the mud, making fire, using commercials for erectile dysfunction. Drug realize the insecurity over the implications of impotence for a man's overall claim to manhood. See that right there, we could say is what created the insecurities. Is that right? Fear of not being able to perform and then being shamed for it and laughed at. But not only by other men, but by women too. Many Indian men have been described as obsessively worried about their sexual capabilities. This heightened fear of impotency occurs throughout the subcontinent and is said to be distinctively Indian. In some cases, men adopt special diets to fight impotence and bolster performance. Often these involve both magic potions and ingestion. In home what homeopathic fashion of semen-like fluids such as milk or egg whites, or even semen itself. Fair variety law. What? Ha! Laws has given rise to more than the usual panoply of cures and treatments for impotency, real or imagined, in both Indian and Sri Lanka. Damn. Doing brave deeds for my lady. All the three P's interact and interrelate with each other. So that, for example, demonstrate a good provider, protector can impress the woman in your community, winning her you opportunities to then show your power as a protector. Procreator. All right. I'm not going to read the rest of this. Oh, what about gay men? Homosexuality is such a top topic these days that I can imagine the elephant in the room. For many, many folks, is how being gay fit into the rubric of manhood. Well, the first thing that is important to realize that the idea of being gay didn't exist in most cultures in the 20th century. The term sexuality was, in fact, not coined until 1869. Before that time, the strict dichotomy between gay and straight did not yet exist. Attraction to the sexual activity with other men was thought of as something not you did, not something you were. It was a behavior rather than a lifestyle or identity. Uh, you can read this. You can read more on the shift on how effective male friendship here. In some cultures, particularly those influenced by Judeo-Christian religion, homosexual behaviors were condemned. But in many pre-industrial, pre-Christian societies, it was considered accepted for men to dabble in sex. Damn. This was especially true for warrior societies like ancient Japan and Sparta. Damn. As it was thought that samurai or hoplite who went to war alongside his lord would be a better soldier, apt to be less lonely on the march and go fight more fiercely in battle. Damn. In these cultures, engaging in the sexual act did not impugn a man's claim to manhood, so long as he retained an active role in the encounter. Accepting the passive or receptive role in the sex act was considered if an abdication of one's masculinity because it meant that he surrendered the male prerogative of control or dominance, as the Roman portrait did, dialogue of love. Those who enjoy playing the passive role we treat as the lowest of the low, and we have no slight degree of respect for the affection for them. Even though a man can engage in transit homosexuality without it, affection has affected his manly reputation. A proclivity same-sex relation did not exempt from the charge to procreate with women. He was still expected to fulfill the imperative to strengthen his society by producing children. For example, those Spartan warriors could take a male lover while out on campaign. Once they return home, they're expected to sleep with their wives to fulfill their duty of new citizens to their state. Damn. In southern Spain, people will heap scorn upon married men without children, no matter how sexually active he may have been prior to marriage, what counts as his results, not their preliminaries. Damn. Woo. Let's read this. All right. I want to go back to a prior article. I'm getting fucking tired. The most important part I want to look into is this: autonomy involves the absolute freedom of movement, a mobility of action. It means being able to make your own decisions, call your own shots, create your own goals, and set your own pace, carve your own path. Equally important as sex, and economic resourcefulness is the underlying appeal to independent action as a starting point of manly self identity. So, this right here, I think, is a big key for most men and black men, especially, right? Autonomy, you know, being able to make your own decision in your own path. That's why they tore away the men from their mothers and, threw them out there to discover themselves. You know what I'm saying? So, I wanted to go into something else. Um, what was I gonna go into again? I'm getting tired. Shit. Now, this is what we're gonna look into. This is what black men's natural thing. This is how it was used against them. So we're gonna go into this 14-minute clip. We're not gonna play the whole clip, but we're gonna go into this clip right here. Shocked. Now, mind you, listen to what was said. Doesn't that sound similar to how most men would reason for why they were breeding? They would have sex to have multiple children in the three P's. Now it's just that um, during slavery, black men, his procreation was used as a negative against him. See how he used the word procreate? So it was used as a negative, right? I'm back. Mm, uh, uh, mm, uh, sound like the Democratic plantation. Produce more slaves, more prison to pipeline funding, more welfare, more slave niggas to vote. Democrat. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh, mm, uh, uh, woo, Uh, that man lived a long damn life, bro. So this man procreation skills as a black man, even though it was used as a negative in the long run, it became a positive because he had a grandchild that was able to tell his story, which is the essence of patriarchy. Look at this man's story. So, again, I'm gonna come to an end with the stream. Um, Black men's procreation should be valued and it shouldn't be shamed because, as I read to you, his procreation is part of the three P's that was the standard of manhood and masculinity around the world. And it just wasn't up until slavery of black men that, because it was used as a negative, that it's now not valued or it's used as a negative now because of slavery. See what I'm saying? So, no, black men, his procreation skills should be valued. It shouldn't be shamed because you can socialize him to use that in a positive manner, like every other culture does. So, with that said, this is Kid Shawty Gaming Nation. Click the like, support the channel, donate, and subscribe.